Welcome to Powering Through Life on the Divas That Care Network. I'm your host, Teresa Sims, and I'm a life coach, an NLP practitioner, and a multiple award-winning author and three-time number one best-selling co-author. And each week on Powering Through Life, my guest and I discuss a special topic that's close to their hearts. Together, we will explore the challenges they've faced in life and learn what strategies and tools they have used to power through their life. Today, my guest is Brenda Pierce, and Brenda is a registered nurse, and she calls herself the Empowered Nurse. She triages body, mind, spirit through her writing, podcasts, TV shows, and soon-to-be-launched magazine, Ageless Blissings. She is a biofield therapy practitioner and teacher. Brenda, welcome to Powering Through Life.
Hi, Teresa, and it's such a privilege to be here with you, and we've done this before, and I'm so happy to be back again, and I want to shout out to all your audience. It's fabulous to be here with you all.
Oh, thanks. And you know what? I enjoy doing this so much with you, and like you say, we've done this multiple times, and each time we come up with something new to share, some more relevant information and tools and tips and tricks for everyone. So I'm so glad you're here again.
Oh, well, great. It's
great.
Great.
And today we have a really interesting topic, and it's regarding Reiki, energy healing, and PEMF therapy. So would you like to describe a little bit about Reiki for us and explain how it works?
Absolutely. So, the thing is, we're these amazing bioelectrical batteries. We're 70%, give or take, 10% water. And then we have neurons and electrons and protons, and they're all sparking all the time. And so we are these amazing human batteries. We're electromagnetic fields. And the thing is, though, when somebody does Reiki, you're working with the biofields or the electromagnetic fields of the body. So I call them biofields. And as a biofield therapist, I've learned many different techniques on working with the biofield. And my first love was Reiki. And I love it because Reiki is Japanese words that mean universal life force energy. And for anybody that's out there that knows Reiki, it's like the most magnificent tool you can have in your own personal toolbox, because it helps to break through the pain, fear, and anxiety triangle that most of us exist in. And when you think about your day-to-day life, and if you are powering through life and you've been experiencing stress, we all know that we have stress at various times in our life. But when you think about the stress or the anxiety you're in, is there not usually accompanying pain and fear? And so if you can break one of those three angles on the triangle, you obviously can usually break the other two down, because when we're in a state of ease and grace, we don't usually have pain. We don't usually have fear. We don't usually have anxiety. And, that's where we want to gravitate to is a place of peace in our life and not pain. So Reiki, I feel, is just like jumper cables on that battery that we are. And we are plugged into, when we're attuned, we're plugged into the universal life force energy. And when we put our hands on or our intention to, the object that we're connecting to, and it can be people, plants, and pets, we can affect the biofield of that organism or person, and we can raise them and jumpstart them into a different state of being. And oftentimes when we change it from where we are to where we're being energized up to, we have a different outlook on life, and we have a different outlook on our experience of life, and it changes our view and our purview and how people react to us. So Reiki, to me, is it creates the relaxation response, which is a coined medical term. It's an actual medical term that happens when the body is put into a state of peace and grace. So there are medical benefits to that. Obviously, if you can break through stress, you break through lower cortisol levels and adrenaline, which is your fight or flight, which is your adrenals, which oftentimes get into adrenal fatigue. If you can, and I've had this where people have done pre and post blood pressure measurements, and oftentimes there is a lowering of blood pressure And so if you can do something naturally that can lower your blood pressure, you put your body in a state of less tax on your heart and your bodily functions, and you can improve circulation. So to me, Reiki has so much more than a lot of people attune it to having, spiritual effects, but there's definitely physiological effects and mental effects and emotional effects as well as spiritual effects, because when we are in that state of ease and Reiki does this, then, like I say, the whole world looks differently. We respond differently. It responds differently back to us, and it can't help but have some great impact on your own state of being as well as those that you work with. So that in a nutshell is what my explanation of Reiki. So I hope that makes sense and that people look at it from a different perspective than just the woohoo stuff.
Yeah, I would agree, Brenda. I mean, and I've taken my level 1 certification in Reiki from you as a master teacher, and, I've applied it to my life daily, and I've learned that, you are absolutely right. When you have that triangle of pain, fear, and anxiety, it's a cyclical thing, and it just keeps going and going. But if you can take one practice and break that cycle, you're farther ahead, and you're reconditioning the body. You're retraining the body to not be in that fight, flight, or freeze aspect of life that so many of us get caught in with the stress and the pressures and the anxiety. And I know I've learned, because I have spine injuries, where my stress hits every time, and it's at the base of my neck. It's the C6-7 area. And when I start to get anxious or stressed or feel some pressure or whatever, the pain increases in that area. And all I have to do is take a few minutes, do some Reiki work or just do some meditation work, and it does tend to release it, and it releases good, natural healing within the body, and it breaks that cycle. So I love Reiki. I love what it does. And do you have any examples that you'd like to share with us of when you've applied Reiki to maybe a patient that you were that was in your care?
Oh, absolutely. Numerous. Usually I pre-pave my day at work. So when I've worked in long-term care, and now I work in hospice, and and so those are difficult areas to work in. And people there are very stressed, and the frontline workers that do the hands-on stuff usually have a lot of physical aches and pains, backaches, headaches are a big, big thing. And so oftentimes, too, so there's a lot of stress. So as I drive to work, will pre-plan the day, send Reiki to the day, intend that the day be smooth and, that the people get along and that there aren't any major issues. And, and not necessarily tell anybody what I'm doing. So nobody knows that I'm pre-planning the day, so to speak. And oftentimes people say, oh, I love working with you. You're always, it's always so peaceful. You're so calm. We just notice that, everybody, these are anecdotal responses over time, but basically the general gist is that they feel so much better when they're working with me because I've, and I know myself. So, I smile and I chuckle and I go, yay, thank you, universe. I'm so happy that I've been able to do that because, a lot of people look at it, and as it's like this voodoo, hoodoo kind of stuff, and yet it has such extreme practicalities in how your day plays out, especially when you're working with people who are coming from their own stuff, right? Like, everybody brings stuff to the primordial soup. And so that's one of the big, big, big things. And usually I use my day and when my drive, and I usually drive about 45 minutes to go to work. And I just use that time, and as I'm driving down the road, I'm sending distance healing to the houses that I pass by, the cars I pass by. I'll work on family members and that sort of thing. And so there's so much, there's so much pain out there. So if there's something we can do to relieve pain, that's great. What I don't find it really works great with is people with dementia. So they're already in a chaotic state of mind. And even though the Reiki energy can be received on, shall we say, the subconscious level, which is more our conscious than our consciousness is our subconscious. But they're in a funny state of mind, and it doesn't tend to work too well for the really demented, cognitively declined people. But what it does work really, really good for is people who are anxious, like I say, it's lowered blood pressures. It's created, like, I've been able to reduce anxiety and panic attacks simply by doing Reiki, rather than, the thing is to get somebody to take a medication and, hope that it works. But oftentimes people that are in a panic attack are not going to be too receptive to taking medication. And if you can get in, great, but it takes a while and sometimes it doesn't work. But I have found just putting my hands on somebody who's having a lot of anxiety really does work well. So grief, it works well. Anxiety, it works well. And I have actually one time, my daughter broke her thumb. And it was a bad fracture. She just jammed it down. She was young. She was first day of school. I don't know what it is with my kids on first days of school, but they've all had things happen on the first day of school. So needless to say, for Allison, my daughter, she jammed her thumb, and it did something called a green stick fracture, a spiral fracture. And those are really difficult to heal, and sometimes they don't heal very well. But my daughter was trained in Reiki. My teacher actually trained her and gave her a level 1 attunement, and we worked together as quite often times. And so we went right away to the doctor, and he did the X-ray and looked at it, splinted it, because there's not a whole lot you can do. And he says, I'll see it in 2 weeks. But he says, I'm going to tell you, I've seen a lot of these. They don't do well. And so then we went to work. We started doing Reiki every day on it. And Allison, of course, being attuned, so the energy was always flowing, but we would do concentrated sessions. We went back in 2 weeks, and it was as if the thumb had never been broken.
Oh, my goodness. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, do you actually have to lay hands on, or do you do it like a few inches above the surface of the person's skin, or how do you go about it?
Well, the wonderful thing is either way is good. And, in fact, doing distance energy work is even more powerful than the hands-on. And why I say that is because sometimes the person has an outcome that they're attached to when you're doing the hands-on. Now, not the practitioner, but the person, because they're expecting, oh my gosh, I hope I get this outcome. I hope, right? But and they're looking for something to happen. Now, mind you, hands-on is magnificent. I've worked on pregnant women with their babies, and and people with back issues that were able to get up and go back to work and things like that. So, but I find that when there isn't the bias of the hands-on, that actually it's truly a subconscious to subconscious connection. And intention for the energy to flow, and if that person can be like a foot away from you to 10,000 miles away from you, it doesn't matter. We are all energetic, connected beings, and so the energy flows where intention goes. So you make the connection, and it just does marvelous things.
So the person actually doesn't need to be even aware that you're sending them the healing or the Reiki.
Well, we like to say that, if you're going to, so if you are working with a client, say, you've connected with a friend and you're saying, like we often will say, I'm sending you prayers. And people say, oh, yeah, great, send me prayers. Well, Reiki is like a form of prayer, again, because prayers mean positive intentions, and Reiki does as well. So I have sent Reiki to people that I have had issues with, just to help heal the situation. So you can do that. It's the subconscious will accept it if it's meant to be. You can actually talk to the person too and say, I'm sending you Reiki. And they'll say, yeah, okay, great. I don't know if I really believe in that or not. And I go, well, let's see. Because the subconscious knows more than the monkey mind does.
Right.
And, so if you whatever you do with the best and highest intentions, whether you tell them or don't tell them. But if you're doing it professionally, you want to make sure you set up a time and that the person is coherent of the fact that you are sending them Reiki. But if you're doing it as a goodwill gesture, like, say, to a war-torn area of the world or where there's been a natural disaster and you want to elevate that area with energy and positivity and healing, then you can go ahead and do that because, it will be received on some level or another. There's fascinating, the Institute of Heart Math. Have you ever heard of that?
Yes, I have, actually, and that's fascinating work. But please go ahead and describe it because a lot of our listeners might not be familiar with it.
Yeah, well, the Institute of Heart Math actually has gone out and measured the energetic changes when people concentrate heartfelt energy. So even like the Care Bears used to send out their beams of love and light to, whatever, and dispel whatever negativity there was. We do that when we send out a heartfelt intention. So they've been able to do this in various ways. So I know that, monks, they have a high vibe. They really are selfless in their intention, and they meditate all the time, and they just basically raise their vibe to such a level. They have been able to measure that when a group of monks were sent to a area such as New York City, and that they were sitting together and doing their chanting and their meditation, that they could actually measure the energetic changes in that particular area where they were. And they noticed in that time that not only was the energetic frequency or vibrational set point of the area raised, but crime reduced, suicides reduced, just all kinds of things reduced that were of a negativity. So again, this sends out, so this institute was able to, at the time of 9/11, they were able to, through however they do it, I think they do it through satellites and tracking systems that they have been able to put out there, that when that disaster happened and the devastation of it all and the sadness and negativity, there was such an outpouring of love and support and just basically goodwill. And we know that boots on the ground, there was a lot of volunteers that were doing a lot of amazing work during that. Yes. But there was also this energetic support of love being focused to that area of pain. And they were able to see that, again, they were able to track it, and there was, in the rest of the area, a reduction of pain and crime and devastation. So the Institute of Heart Math has been around for a long time, and they track this. So this is just to add validation to the fact that a person who does energetic practices like Reiki or therapeutic touch or whatever it is that they're doing, when they do it from a place of love, and one person has a huge impact, but when you do it as a group, it really, really does have this persisting impact in the region as a whole. And in fact, before the Institute of Heart Math, they were able to say in World War II, when Nazi Germany was trying to invade Austria, and they were trying to get into Vienna, they never got their foothold into Vienna, because what happened was, around the perimeter of the city, everybody did a concerted rosary. They were praying the rosary. And that prayer, again, positive energy, going out, asking for protection, asking for, relief of, obviously they didn't want to be invaded, actually repelled the invasion.
There is a lot to be said for that. Yeah. I mean, it's no different than like a prayer chain, like you say, or prayer groups or positive intention groups. It's just putting some positive energy out. And you say, like, we vibrate on a certain energy field, and we have the incredible power within us. We just need to explore it.
Absolutely. The human potential is huge, and in this day and age where you turn on CNN or CBC and it's nothing but, conflict and blame, shame games and everything else, you can either feed into it and add to that energy, or you can repel it and just say, no, I'm not going to be part of that. I envision a different world. And, in today's world, and we were talking before the show about, the increased rate of suicides and depression and anxiety that our younger people are in. We hear it all the time that, if people were to start to practice, and the younger people are so wired to every social media and game and everything else. If we were to just put that same intention into the energy potentials that we have, wouldn't the world be a better place?
Oh, it certainly would. And, one of my former guests, Tanya McIntyre, we were discussing this actually about mainstream media and how it creates what Tanya calls the FUD factor, which is fear, uncertainty, and doubt.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what mainstream media creates. It doesn't mean that you're actually getting the truth out of the media. You're getting the sensationalism out of the media, and that causes a lot of upset. It causes a lot more anxiety, a lot more stress in people. And I actually personally do not watch news. I don't listen to the radio news. It's not like I'm tuned out. I am aware of what's going on, but I make the conscious choice not to bring that negativity into my body.
Exactly. That's a wise choice, and I'm sure that many of your listeners are of that same enlightenment that that they're making a conscious choice and they're exploring their possibilities and potentials in such a beautiful way. So this is media that matters, and that's what I often use as my quote for what I do and bring into the world is media that matters, and we all have this voice in this cosmic conversation and using it for positive intonations, like just hearing our intonations in our voice. There's no anxiety, like when we're talking about these things. It's not like it's a negative in any way, shape, or form. It's positive. It raises the vibration just even listening to our voices. So so consciously making those choices is so key.
Absolutely.
So key to survival.
Absolutely. Now, you're also, I don't know whether you call it a practitioner or not, but you also do something called PEMF therapy. Do you want to describe what that is and why it's so important to us now?
Absolutely. I love it. So PEMF therapy, if anybody's ever heard of it, is pulsed electromagnetic field therapy. So you can see where, like doing the energy work, that there's actually a physical system or tool that can help with raising your vibrational set point, helping you to reduce anxiety, helping your body to actually improve its circulation and reduce pain. And so these devices have been around for probably since they first shot man up into space. Because when they first started, and it was this technology has basically been around and developed from NASA scientists. So, and it's really, really taking hold now because we are so exposed to electromagnetic fields, and that can be from cell phones or even our wireless phones, our baby monitors, our remote controls for TVs, our cell phones, our microwave ovens, cell phone towers, and now that we're getting into the 5G networks, we really, really need to really explore having a PEMF device in our own homes. Why? Because the 5G networks are very powerful. They're bringing those cell phone towers that we've seen all over dotted around, and basically, you're either in range or out of range for your Wi-Fi and your cell phone, and we'll go in and out of hotspots and things like that. With the 5G network, and people don't realize this, is yes, you're going to have ease of movement, and your Wi-Fi is always going to be perfect and running, and more people who are out in the hinterlands, so to speak, are going to be connected. Even if you're in the middle of the desert, you're going to be connected. But what it does is it's bringing a very powerful energy frequency called terahertz. And terahertz are like 10,000 times stronger than our current cell phone frequencies. And bringing those little mini towers down to street level. So every street basically is going to have a little 5G tower somewhere. You're going to see it or you're not going to see it. But what this increased frequency, because like I said before, we're these beautiful, amazing electromagnetic generator batteries that we are. what these terahertz can do and has been found to do can actually pull apart DNA structures. And that, what are we? We are DNA and RNA. Everything that has a living life force has DNA. Plants have it, pets have it, we have it, everything, trees have it, plants have it. So it has the potential. So here we are in this day and age where we have so much medical technology and knowledge and science and everything else. And yet, why are people more sick than ever before? And more sick means things that we are taking for granted, such as, a headache, muscle aches and joints. We think it's fibromyalgia, or we call it all kinds of different things. But it is actually mitochondrial dysfunction that's happening in our own bodies based on how these rampant terahertz and increased hertz of energy are floating around us through us. This is more like warfare. We're being experimented on, and I'm saying this quite radically, but it is truth. Is that we are being experimented on by our own technology that is our convenience, that we feel we can't live without.
That actually makes sense, Brenda, because, when we were children, there wasn't all of this. And now it's everywhere. All this electronic stuff is everywhere. We can't even get away from it. And yet look at all the more prominent diseases, the more children that are being born with disorders, and I don't know how to phrase it correctly, but, it just seems like it's epidemic almost.
Well, and you think about it, and, as a nurse, when I started nursing, it was paper and pencil and pills, and doctor's orders were written by hand, and, everything was done by hand, and there wasn't any computerization. Hence now, for anybody who's been in nursing, the last 20 years, they grew up with technology, and that's been a part of life. But it wasn't part of mine. Like, when a doctor came to the nurses' station, we dropped everything and stood at attention until the doctor said, "At ease, girls." So now everything is texted and electronic Mars, and and everything's electronic documentation. We don't get away from it, and as you and I both know too, we spend a lot of time in front of a computer. How many times do you walk away with your eyes burning, or dry eyes, or feeling that burn on your cheeks? That's the electromagnetic frequencies that are being offloaded from the devices that are creating our businesses and our lives. And if you sit under fluorescent lights, like I remember years ago at Nanticoke, the power station there, somebody stood under the corridor of cables with two fluorescent light bulbs just in their hand, and there was so much errant frequencies that it lit up those light bulbs. I'm sure you can still do it.
I remember that. I think that was so freaky when when that went on, but it just shows you what's in and around us that we're not even conscious of, I guess, but yet subconsciously we kind of are, because it's messing us up.
It is. It's causing more sleep disruptions. It's causing sexual dysfunction. It's causing a decreased quality in life. People are more tired. So, if you're sitting in an office job or sitting in front of your computer, and there's a lot of mental energy that goes on to create the documents and write the books and everything else that we're doing and contact the clients and all that stuff. But we get up off our chairs. How many times are you tired? Like just physically tired, as if you've been running a marathon all day long. Yeah. And like I say, the transient aches and pains that people think are fibromyalgia or whatever, and or arthritis type things. It's the inflammation that is caused from these frequencies hitting our body. And it actually, what it can do too, is make your blood sticky, so it clumps. And when you have clumping blood, you have poor circulation because the oxygenation and the nutrients are not getting to the distal cells, and and so there's a real problem. And so going back to what PEMF therapy can do, and this is even simply said that energy, our body resonates about 7.83 hertz, which is, if anybody wants to check out the Schumann resonance, that is a natural resonance of the earth, our heart, our mind, and the atmosphere. And it's 7.83 hertz, which is very, very low. Dogs can't even hear it. We can't hear it, but it's a sound frequency. But it's the sound frequency of our cell's natural rhythm, where it has maximum health and ability to regenerate themselves, the cells. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And we have 70 trillion cells in our body, give or take 10 trillion or so, depending on your body size and whatever else. But every one of those cells resonates at the Schumann resonance, 7.83 hertz. So if you've ever been in a clock shop where, the old antique clocks with the pendulum,
right?
If you've ever noticed when you are looking at those clocks, and I remember a jewelry store here in our local town where they had oodles of clocks, Swiss clocks and Belgian clocks and whatever. Yep. The pendulums were all in sync with each other.
Mm.
Yeah. And if you stopped one of the pendulums and restarted it, and it started in an irregular beat with the rest of them, it would entrain to the resonance of the same beat as the other clocks. Mm. That entrainment is what happens in our body when our cells are in their healthy resonance. They are in sync with each other. So what happens is when hydros start coming into the house, it's actually 60 hertz. And 60 hertz doesn't seem like a whole lot. But again, if you sit near an outlet or a plug where something's plugged into it and that energy is flowing through, 60 hertz is flowing through and is starting to disrupt your cells. Maybe not to the same extent as what this terahertz of energy coming that is going to be bombarding us is going to do. Mm-hmm. But when you think about it, this is as old as time and energy. Once electricity started coming into homes, there's been a whole lot of other types of illnesses that have been showing up. But the worst is to come. So when you think about the we may not see it, we may not feel it, but we do see it and feel it because we're manifesting these very benign symptoms that are, we're considering, aging process, the aches and pains and poor circulation and everything else. But it is highly, and anybody who wants to check this out on PubMed or look up studies, highly affected by, and the increased rate of cancers as well. Yeah. By the increased frequencies that are disrupting our cells' natural regenerative abilities and causing the sticky blood and causing these aches and pains. So it is basically somebody I know who's very much into this business says, what's happening with the 5G networks is actually crime against humanity. And we don't see it, we don't know it, and yet we're victims to this. And so one of the anecdotes is, and this is a huge, because like I was, PEMF therapy is an anecdote to electromagnetic sensitivity or this mitochondrial dysfunction or any of these other names that we have for inflammation in our body, because these mats are programmed with a time of day frequency and lowers the body back down into a healthy regenerative state, allows the cells a chance to get back into sync with each other and to give us a fighting chance against all these other bombardments that we're having. I mean, basically it's said that if you lay on a PEMF mat for 8 minutes twice a day, each 8-minute session that you do has like 4 to 6 hours of positive effect in your body. Gives you a fighting chance.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's incredible because, there's days, like you say, we're sitting at the computer, we get up and we're more exhausted. When you mentioned that, I honestly went back to the days where we used to work out in the tobacco fields. You almost feel more exhausted sitting in front of this computer than you used to feel coming in from a 10-hour day out in the field.
Exactly.
And it's so draining, and yet, I sit and I think, we're in the homes, and there's times when I hear a hum. And I have very acute hearing. So, I hear just a natural hum, and I'm always asking my husband, what is that noise? Do you hear that? Is there something going on in the house? And yet it must be that energy field that we're being bombarded with that I'm actually maybe very sensitive to. I don't know. But
well, yeah, last week, I don't know why. There was a transformer in our area. It knocked out power to 12,000 homes and quite a broad range area. And, I was really kind of frustrated because I was on the Internet. I was doing my work. I was, setting up different things. And all of a sudden, the hydro's out, the Internet's out, your phones are out, your cell phone is out, everything is dead. And the furnace was off. Thank goodness it was a decent day, and the temperatures were, I actually had the windows open. But it was dead silence.
That must have been incredible.
It was, because everybody was out of their house. Everybody was home because nobody could work in the stores or the factories or get groceries. So everybody was home, and everybody was outside, and we were all talking to each other. And the funny thing was you could hear conversations like down at the end of the road, basically, because there was nothing interfering from all this dead noise that we associate as normal. It was incredible. And it was like, when, you couldn't wait for the hydro to come back on, but when it came back on, it was like, oh, there's that noise again.
Yeah, and we forget that noise is there, and it's almost that saying that silence is deafening because it is so loud. But it's a beautiful gift when we don't have it anymore. And I know last week when we had those ice storms here, and we're having them again, there was actually no traffic. And I was kind of concerned. I'm thinking, what is that noise? Oh, yeah, there's no traffic. What a beautiful sound that was. And it just took me back to being out in the country, out away from everything, where the sound is just peace. And it's a beautiful gift.
And with us, too, we had the benefit, tobacco has had its bad points, but we have to share with our listeners what an incredible experience as a farmer and growing up on these farms it was for us, because we got out in the fields barefoot in the silica sand of the sandy loam, grounded. The hot surface might be hot, but you scuff your feet under, and it was always nice and cool. Yes. And we were touching nature. We were, topping the tobacco. We were hoeing. We were really, really grounded. And as negative as outcomes are with lung cancer, that the actual tobacco itself has a lot of medicinal properties. But what an incredible experience it was for us to grow up with that.
Oh, yeah. I did that into my 20s. And, I remember helping a farmer friend of mine we had an incredible wind and rainstorm one time, and his full 100 acres of tobacco was blown over, laying on the ground. And we were out there, shorts, bare feet, sticking in the mud, straightening up every tobacco plant that was in that 100 acres of tobacco was enormous. And, but it was the most fun, enjoyable, peaceful things, because you're connecting with the earth. You're not connecting with, mind you, at that time, cell phones weren't around and internet wasn't in our area, and there was a lot to be said for the peace and calm that connecting with the land brought to us. And I think, if we can find that, grasp it, and hang on to it because your life really does depend on connecting with the earth and who you are. So how does the PEMF therapy go about switching these hurts and our energy inside of us?
Right. So what it does is the system that I really love is the one from Swiss Bionics, and it has a portable tablet. So even though when you need to upgrade the features, you can tap into the internet. Basically, it is wireless, it is portable, and what it does is has a program inside of it, and the program is the IMRS programming, which is actually FDA and Health Canada approved as a Class 2 medical device. So there is a lot of science. There's been a lot of R&D and a lot of research. So this isn't just, hooey-pooey stuff. But what it does is it has a condenser that the energy flows through to, and then the programming, and then it flows into the mat system, which has, in this particular case, copper coils. And what the copper coils do is they emit the frequency that is programmed into it. So there are various programs that you can choose, and depending on what the application is. So for people who lay on a general big size mat where you do it 8 minutes twice a day, your pets will love this too, because pets are so innocent. They're not biased, and they don't know all this stuff that we have to try to figure out for ourselves. They organically will go and lay on a mat and stay there and just be in such an oblivious state of bliss. It's comical to watch. And anyway, so these frequencies are programmed to be within the Schumann resonance and bring your body down into its healthy resonance again, to give you a fighting chance, to get your cells to start to oscillate and vibrate together, which means that nutrition is being, the cells are communicating with each other. They're regenerating. Nutrition is being flowed and wastes are being eliminated, which is what happens when the oscillating, vibrating, chaotic frequencies are attacking us. Food and nutrition are not getting disseminated properly into the cells, and waste is not getting removed. And so cell function becomes impaired, and that's why we end up with all these transient aches and pains. Right. And so when these systems are actually, you're laying on it, you're basically getting supercharged to the right level that your human battery needs to be able to function properly. And most people will say, like, they'll lay on a mat system and not feel anything or think that nothing's happening. But what usually happens is most people will start to report that they sleep better at night or sleep longer at night because, again, with these air frequencies, we're having difficulty settling down to get into the beta and theta wave forms of sleep, and we're not staying there. So that's the disruption effect. So having, if you were to lay down at night, it actually will relax you and help you to have that better night's sleep and give your body, because, again, that sleep is when we repair ourselves. Right. And it's such a healing time that you're giving your body a chance to relax and do what it's supposed to do overnight, and then be awake, refreshed in the morning and ready to go. Now, there are different applications, too. So in sports medicine, these devices are also where I talked about my daughter's thumb and Reiki helping to heal the bone. These devices have been known, and there's anecdotes and there's studies and all kinds of different things out there. I brought one up the other day where they were talking about fractures, that these devices will actually speed up the healing of non-unionized fractures. So a clean break fracture where there's no connection at all will re-heal itself properly and in much reduced time. So that's really, again, where the biofields come into play, that this is also another way of working, like it's biofield therapy itself, only in a device. So one really graphic experience was my mother had a large ganglion. It had to be about an inch high and about an inch round. And, and she was going, what do I do? And I says, well, there's three things you can do. You can go to the doctor and they'll cut it out. We can bang it with a really heavy book. They used to use the Bible a lot for banging these down. Right. Or we can experiment with putting it on the PEMF mat and seeing what happened. And within a week and a half, it was gone.
Oh, that's amazing, because I was going to ask you, because I know your mom uses the PEMF mat, and I know she's had great success with it. I also know that you have been using, or you're letting your dog Daisy use the EMF mat as well, and Daisy was quite ill for a time there, wasn't she?
Yes, she was. She had to have, she was starting to grow some growth. She's an older dog, so she was 14 at the time, and she was getting lumpy and bumpy, and so I took her to get some surgery done, and and so she had the cone of shame, of course, and
yes,
big incision down her back and everything else, and she was spending time on the mat, and within, I would say, it wasn't long, actually. Within the week, I had the cone off of her, and she was not itching, and the hair was growing back really nicely. And I would say it was probably about 3 weeks farther along than it would have been,
wow.
if we didn't do it. So
right.
When she went back for her check, the vet was like, "Oh my gosh, look at how fast she's healed. She's a very healthy dog." Well, I'm not going to get into all that, but with the vet, but it was just a very graphic demonstration again of what this can do. And actually, I have a friend who puts her wine on it, and the wine tastes better.
Oh, interesting. Well,
yeah.
there's proof that actually, you can take a glass of water and put positive, what is it? How does that work? You put positive intentions or ions? Yes.
Yeah.
And it changes the chemical makeup of the water. Is that not correct?
Yeah. Yes, the Dr. Emoto studies are
yes.
really, really amazing. We're frozen water from the most polluted lakes in Japan. When you freeze the water and you put it in an environment, and like a glass, and you're surrounding it with positivity and playing Beethoven's music, the classics, which were the solfeggio frequencies and healing frequencies, which are not a part of our modern music, and that's another story.
Yeah.
And even enclosing words like love and healing and help and happiness around them actually changes the molecular structure. And so, again, we're 70%, give or take, water.
Mm-hmm.
If we surround ourselves with positivity, you get more positivity because from a biochemical perspective, you're changing the water molecular structure.
Absolutely.
So PEMF does the same thing for you.
Well, it's kind of like we were always told when you wanted to have a house plant, you need to talk to it. You need to, nurture it. It's the same thing. You need to nurture your body in order to have it at its best state, its healthiest state. So how would we go about getting more information on the PEMF? I know we're going to have all of the links that you provide us for the segment. We'll have them included on the website, the Divas That Care Network, and we'll be sharing all of that. But just tell us briefly how we could find out more information about that.
Absolutely, because, again, if a person's listening to this and not on the Divas That Care Network, they're not going to see those links. And I, for one, love to share podcasts all over the place. So the MP3 will get out there. And so my website is PEMFconsultant.com. So PEMF, which is all one letter, all lowercase, consultant.com. And if you go on social media as well, on Facebook in particular, I have a PEMF consultant group page on Facebook, and you can ask to join. And it basically, I have, I'm doing seminars with Ali Ox, who is the president of Swiss Bionics Canada.
Right.
Who better than somebody who actually has seen this for herself. She just didn't buy into a business. She was broken, falling apart, and broken, and a friend in Austria told her about PEMF, and this is about 10, 12 years ago. And she got a system and started using it, and she needed a hysterectomy. I think she needed some joint replacements, and never, ever had to have those because of the effects of PEMF therapy.
Oh my
goodness.
And
she laid the mat on her dining room table and had the neighbors who knew that she was doing something come and lay on it and also experience it for themselves. Hence, 12 years later, she has this global business, and she is the president of Swiss Bionics Canada, and very inspirational. And so I was very lucky to tap into Ali. She does live seminars on the Facebook group, and has been, just a wealth of information. And, so that's where you can go. Those are two great sources. The social media page is hooked up for the PEMFconsultant.com website, and I have media as well. I've interviewed Ali on my TV program, Oxford Empowered, and so that segment's up there, as well as there are some other experts in Canada who who are experts in this EMF world and the ravages of it from an environmental perspective, and are supportive of PEMF therapy. The White House in the U.S., Capitol Hill, has a medical center, and they just recently purchased 8 of the systems that I promote.
Oh.
And, Tony Robbins, who is an inspirational, motivational guru that we all know and love, he has a PEMF system in every one of his locations. And when he's doing a seminar, he's on it before the seminar and after the seminar. And that's the secret to being so jazzed up and jived up, which is just incredible.
Yes. Well, I know I've met Allie Ox, and, to me, she is the picture of perfect health, fitness, and beauty. And I do know how old she is, but honestly, she does not look her age at all. She is amazing looking, and I know she attributes all of this to using this system. And, one of these days I'm going to have to get down to your place and try this, because I really need to experience this once. And you never know. It could turn into some wonderful things, because I have a lot of issues going on in my body, including chronic pain, arthritis, and they claim fibromyalgia, but I refuse to accept that diagnosis. So, it's all in a lot of it has to do with the mindset as well. And Brenda, I really want to thank you for being here. Is there any quote that you love or saying that you love that you would like to leave our listeners with today?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for the privilege of being here on the show and spending this wonderful time with your audience. So my big thing is, and it took me a long time to get to this point, I'm in the autumn of my life now, and I wish I knew what I know now like 30 years ago. I really do. But
wouldn't that be remarkable?
I can only imagine what we'd be accomplishing. But the thing is, it's never too late. It's never too late to think about the definition of insanity, because when we're going around in the rat race of life and we're just existing and persisting and wondering, why is it that things aren't changing? What's the definition of insanity? And Einstein makes this so clear, and once I realized it was like, duh, it was like a V8 moment, doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting a different outcome.
Isn't that so true? It really is. And when we can get off that rat wheel, we would be just so much more dynamic and so much better and so much healthier, I think, too.
Yeah. Well, the thing with PEMF therapy and Reiki and any of these biofield things that we've talked about today, it's never too late to get off the rat wheel.
Absolutely.
It really is.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I know the best thing I ever did was learning my level 1 Reiki from you. And, I've used it on myself with chronic knee injuries, and my husband twists his ankles all the time. And when you just put your hands over and put the good healing, send the good vibrations towards the injury, you can actually feel the area warm up and heat up. And it's incredible what can happen, and the healing is just magnified. And we need to do a lot more of that for ourselves. Take every opportunity we can, right?
Yep, absolutely. So I hope, the practical applications of what we've discussed today really open the listeners' eyes and ears up to the possibilities and potentials of the electromagnetic fields that we really are, and how awesome we are, and how we can really change the outcomes of what's going on in this world if we really apply them.
We can, absolutely. Brenda, thank you so much for sharing all of your wisdom and your beautiful insight with us today. I so appreciate that, and I appreciate you very much.
And as I do you.
Thanks. So thanks again, Brenda. And Divas, that brings to a close another great, inspiring interview on Powering Through Life. So thank you to my incredible guest, Brenda Pierce, for sharing her thoughts and wisdoms with our listeners today. And Divas, if you'd like to connect with Brenda, we will have all of her links that she's mentioned on the Divas That Care Network. I will share it on my social media. I will have it on my website, and I'm sure Brenda will share it on her social media pages as well. So click on the connections and get to know Brenda, get to know what she offers, and reach out. I'm sure she would be so thrilled to get in contact with you. So thanks again for listening to Powering Through Life on the Divas That Care Network.